what's going on, everybody? This is Jeffrey Wallace, and I'm the executive pastor at Peace Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Today, we're going to talk about the importance of preparing your calendar to fit the crazy, busy ministry world that we all live in. For many of you, you may not be a full-time youth leader. For a lot of you, you may be a volunteer or bivocational, and so I understand that in the craziness of life, if you don't plan ahead, or if you're not prepared, if you don't take a look at your calendar, then what will happen is you'll wake up one morning, you'll say, man, I'm so tired, I'm burnt out, I've been busy doing a lot of stuff, but I don't know that I've been very productive. So today is really a soul care time. It's a soul care session so that we can make sure that you're intentional about being the best you that you can be. In Proverbs 16:3, the Bible tells us that we need to commit to the Lord our plans and all that we'll do, and He will establish the plans that He has for us. God also tells us in Jeremiah 29:11 that, for I know the plans that I have for you, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, but plans to give you a hope and a future. So in Proverbs and in Jeremiah, we know that the plans of God, the plans that God has for us is really important to God. And so He has already some great things in store for you. You are gifted and you're called to do great things. You just have to be intentional about organizing your space, organizing your life, and organizing those ministries that you're a part of. So when we're looking at our calendar, there's a couple of things that I want to share with you that's very important that you look at. So just picture, if you would, that you have a white piece of paper, and I want you to do a couple of things as you're planning your calendar. So maybe you're taking some time away, if you can, maybe a day or two, where you can just kind of get away. And I want you to take a white piece of paper, and I want you to do a couple of things. The first thing is, you're looking at the year. I want you to write out all of what we call the civic calendar events. The civic calendar events are your regular, everyday calendar of events, such as like Martin Luther King Day. We know that there's Mother's Day, Father's Day, Memorial Day, Labor Day. These are the things that are already on the calendar, and you want to kind of put those dates that are out there that are very important. You also want to make sure, if you're married or if you're dating, you want to put down Valentine's Day, because that's a very important civic calendar day. So then after you do that, so that's the 30,000 foot view, and then we're going to bring it in. You want to look at what we call the Christian calendar of events. So we want to look at the calendar and see what are the dates of things like, say, Easter, or when is Christmas fall this year, or when is Ash Wednesday, when is the Passion Week, Palm Sunday, Good Friday. You want to take a look and put down those dates up under those civic calendar dates. Then the third thing that you want to do is, if you are ministering to groups of students or children, you want to make sure that you take a look at the schools that are in your district or in your county, and then you want to look at the school calendars. So what are those days where kids are off for spring break? What are those days when kids have teacher work days, or there is some type of professional development that's taking place there during the school year? So you're taking the civic calendar of events, then you're putting in those Christian calendar of event things, and then you're taking a look at the school calendar. Now you're ready as a program leader to start programming for your ministry. Why are these things important? It's important because if you're planning and programming for students, you want to see what is the best time for you to maximize the people that can come to your church or to your organization. For example, if there is a teacher's work day that's going on during the weekend of President's Day, then maybe if that teacher's work day is on a Friday and President's Day is on that following Monday, then maybe you're going to plan a trip for that entire weekend, because you have a 4-day weekend that's there. That's important to know, because you may want to do a D-Now weekend, you may want to do a leadership retreat or some staff retreat or something with your students, and you want to find what are those rhythms on your calendar that's going to help you be very, very productive. Now that you've done that, you're ready to program your ministry. You're ready to look at some of those things that are on your calendar that you want to do, some of those programs, some of those services that you want to do, some of those outreach events. You want to make sure that those events they're connected within the fiber of this calendar that you've written on. And now there's also a thing what we call the annual calendar. So I want to make sure you're tracking with me. So we have the civic calendar that we talked about. We also have the thing called our Christian calendar, which is the Christian events, Easter, and all of those things. Then we have the school calendar of knowing what is the rhythm of the schools and the districts that we're dealing with. And then we have the program ministry calendar. Now, but there are also another thing that in many of our churches we have is what we call an annual calendar. The annual calendar is what are those events that touch the life of the entire church. And so the annual calendar are those times we'll look, for example, during the Easter season, maybe your entire church is putting on an Easter egg hunt or an extravaganza or some kind of community block party. Well, that event is an annual event that you do every year, and it really, really connects with every part of the ministry. And so it's not just in the youth ministry or the children's ministry silo. It is a ministry or it's in a program or activity or an event that touches everybody. So you want to look at those annual events and say, what are those things that we as a church we do? At my church, we do on New Year's Eve, we do a thing called a watch night service. And our watch night service is when we come in at 10 o'clock p.m. and we have a service that takes us into the new year. Well, that's a church-wide annual event that we do. It's one of those events we call those non-negotiable events. It's those events that, it's on the calendar no matter what, but you want to see what day that is. And so we'll do a watch night service, and we have environments and programs for our teenagers. We have environments and programs for our children, and then our adults, they have their own environment, and we bring in the new year together. Now, the reason why I'm taking you through all of these different types of calendars and I'm asking you to take some time away and look at the big picture, the 30,000 foot view, is because the calendar that is the most important is your personal calendar. That calendar that really speaks to those times where, number one, you can connect with God. When is the moment that you have and the time that you have to connect to God? I think that it's important that as leaders and as Christians, we understand that we have to plan that time out. It's okay to say, you know what, at 6 a.m. every morning, I'm going to get up and I'm going to have a time of devotion. For me, I've started to do a thing where, I'll get up and I'll go to the gym in the morning and I'll go and get on the treadmill and I'll listen to some worship music, and that's my time to really connect with God. Or if I'm on my commute from my house to the church, which takes me, with my commute in Atlanta, I don't know if you've been in Atlanta, but that traffic is murderous. And so it'll take me about 45 minutes to get from my house to the church. So during that time, I'll turn off the music and I'll spend that time with God. But I'm very intentional about, number one, connecting with God and planning that in my calendar. That's that uninterrupted time. Because if you don't plan that time with God, you don't allow God to really speak to you and minister to you. And so I don't care how amazing your ministry calendar is, if you don't have that time to calendar that time with God, then you're not going to be a very productive and spirit-filled leader. And that's what we want, because we don't want you to try to give something that you don't have. So number one, you got to make sure that you're connecting with God. The second thing that you want to do is you want to also have time where you're just connecting with a hobby or something that you like. For me, this is going to sound crazy, but I love just going out and, and just chilling and watching NFL Network or Sports Center. I am a sports junkie. So for recreation and a hobby, for me, I like to just kick back, and my Jeff time is when I'm sitting around just watching Sports Center. So what is that hobby that you have that you can make sure that you can program in your life and make sure that you are doing those things to really kind of build yourself up and take time where you can kind of woo-saw and fall back and just spend time with yourself. So we got time where we're connecting with God, time we're connecting with ourselves. And then for those of you who may be married, then what about the time that you're connecting with your spouse? My wife and I, we have planned date night. And those date nights, we do not touch them. And it's important that you know the big picture, you know what your corporate calendar looks like, so that you can plan those date nights. And when you plan those date nights, fellas, let me tell you in particular, do not change those, because a happy wife is a happy life, is what they say. So my wife and I, we have those date nights that we put on our calendar, and we say, hey, on Friday night, this time, honey, we are going to the movies, or we're going to get something to eat. And you don't have to break the bank and spend a lot of money. It's really just the intentionality of cultivating your marriage and cultivating your relationship with your spouse. And then we plan our family night. I don't know if you've ever played the game Phase 10, but we like this little card game in our family. We have Phase 10 Fridays, and it's a great time for my kids and my wife and I for just to sit around a table. There is no cell phones, there is no music, there is nothing else. It's just us hanging out with one another, and that's so important. And if you're dating or you're interested in someone, you want to still have those times where you really cultivate your personal life. It's important for me as we close, for me to help you understand as youth leaders and as influencers and ministers of the gospel that you have a life that is balanced. Too much of anything can turn into a bad thing. So my prayer for you is that as you're looking at your year, as you're looking at the quarters, that you really begin to plan your calendar out in a very productive way where you have balance, you have harmony, and great rhythm. May God bless you. God encourage you. Plan as God has called you to plan. Take care.